All right, there's some stories I couldn't tell until my sons turned about 20. So this is a story about 1982, when I decided I was going to go to senior week. My dad was not very thrilled about this idea of going to senior week, and things got rather worse because my one buddy who I was going to go to senior week with and who was going to drive, the last week of school, he disappeared from school. He just totally vanished. And I didn't know what happened to him for 30 years. But he was totally gone. So my dad, very reluctantly, let me take one of our family cars. My family owned a rent-a-wreck business back in the 80s. All these really beat up old cars that as a teenager, driving an AMC Pacer, there was no chance I was getting laid. You know, we had two AMC Pacers, an AMC Gremlin. We had an old Chevy Impala. So he let me take the Chevy Impala down, a big boat of a car. And I drove down with one friend and had a great time at senior week, as you would expect. Swallowed a quarter on the first night, you know, and it did all the stupid things. But by like, we weren't coming back till Sunday. So Friday night, we stayed up to watch the sunrise on the beach. We get down there, my friend falls face first, has a racing stripe of sand in his face. Then the last night, you know, I was partied out, and I wasn't out drinking, but I was just basically, I went to O'Hara, and I ended up basically hanging out with a girl from Prendy all night, and nothing really, you know, nothing crazy. I was too naive to say, you know, I have a room to myself I could take her back to, and, you know, I was too naive and too honest at the time. So, but we hung out all night talking, seriously talking, and hanging out, and then going to the beach. And then, as it turns out, I have to drive home that day. And a bunch of other kids who had somehow gotten down there from Drexel Hill, but had no ride home, suddenly heard I had this big Impala. So they're like, can we get a ride? Can we get a ride? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I didn't know these guys that well, but they were, you know, they'd gone to my school, but so did 800 other kids. And so I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So we get in the car, and I'm driving all these kids, I don't really know them well, and I am falling asleep driving home. And we're taking the back ways home, and I am literally falling asleep. And I'm like, I can't do this. And so I pull over, and I let some kid drive. To this day, I can't even remember who it was, and I fell asleep in the passenger just for, you know, an hour maybe. And it wasn't obviously a heavy sleep. But we get to Drexel Hill, they drop a bunch of kids off, I make the drive out to Media, and I get home from this road trip, and like, just, you know, I haven't slept in the past 2 nights really. And I walk in the door, and I'm just gonna say goodnight to my mom, and I'm gonna go up and go to bed. Well, I walk into the kitchen just to tuck my head in, and she's like, I'm glad you're home. We're leaving in 15 minutes. We're taking your dad out for Father's Day dinner. Right? And I'm like, no, I wanted to cry on the spot. I'm like, so I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So to go out for a Father's Day dinner with 8 kids was, you know, that's a big treat for the family. And of course we end up at the ground round, you know, right out here on Westchester Pike. And we all sit down, and my dad orders this big steak and a beer that he likes, and, you know, kids are all getting burgers. And I am literally sitting there, you know, it's kind of you kind of stand out when you're a family of 10 out having dinner, and especially I was the oldest at whatever, 17, and, you know, the little ones are like 5 and 7. And so the family all stands out. But what makes it worse is I'm there sitting next to my dad, and it's not the little 3-year-old that's falling asleep at this dinner table, it's me. I'm 17 years old at the ground round, and I am like falling asleep at the dinner table, much to the like horror of my father and my mother. They're like, my father was thinking I'm a lush, and like after a week of inebriation and alcohol, that he literally pours half his beer into a little thing and slides it to me in the ground round, thinking like a half beer is going to bring me back because I'm going through detox at the ground round. And but we finally get through, and I get out, and after this horrendous, ridiculous dinner, I make it home and get to sleep the strongest, best 16 hours of my life. And that was one road trip I'll never forget. Thanks.